Alright, you guys, so this is a bit of a change. I would just like to say that I no longer work for PetSmart. I'm not affiliated with PetSmart. The opinions that I'm about to express probably are not PetSmart's opinions. For those of you who don't know, I did used to work at PetSmart. It's been a few years since I worked there, but this week one of my ex-coworkers unfortunately was killed in a car accident. I'm wearing my old shirt today in solidarity with my ex-coworkers who are all going through a really tough time right now. I guess just to show some solidarity for the little chunk of internet that I have here, that Ben Boren is very much in my thoughts, and he was a really supportive employee and friend, and I wasn't gonna film today, but he would work the night shift doing stock all day, and then he would cover my day shift when I called in sick. So Ben is not the kind of person who would want me to sit at home and lay on my couch all day. He would want all of us to keep working, and I can recognize that knowing him even the little bit that I did. So today's video is dedicated to Ben and my family at PetSmart, and that's why the shirt's here. Now that I've dampened everybody's mood, now that we're all on the same level, let's jump into it. So Davis over on Twitter asked me the most asked question I get, second to like, why are your birds so loud? Biggest question I get on all of my socials, hands down, is, oh my god, I really want a saltwater fish tank. Is it really that hard? Is it as scary as everybody says? I'm here to both credit and discredit those beliefs. Oh god, this is such a loaded question. A tank can be as easy or as complicated as you make it. I did film a video for Dusty Hartle's creator showcase that he's doing that touches on this a little bit, so I'm gonna try not to spoil that because it's still like somewhere deep in the recesses of like both of our emails, but we'll get there. I will say that saltwater is very different from freshwater. It's a completely different experience, and that's not to say that one is better over the other, but they're, aside from that they both have like a box with water in it, that's pretty much where the similarities like end. Your feelings and opinions on how you want your tank to go down, chuck them. They are irrelevant now, because now you're trying to make a tiny little ocean in a box, and like the real ocean, it's gonna do what it's gonna do, all right? It has a mind of its own. Just stop trying to force it to be something. Every single person I know who has a hard time with saltwater makes two really big mistakes. Buckle up. Here I am sharing my vast wealth of knowledge and experience in the saltwater world. Just kidding, it's been less than a year, so you know, do with that what you will. If I seem really chatty, it's because I've been grieving alone in my house for 2 days. Number one, rushing your tank. So you know how in freshwater when everybody says that like you need to cycle your tank before you put the fish in it because it's really unethical and it can lead to a lot of loss, and all of those ammonia spikes are just a bad time waiting to happen. And you know, like with freshwater, you're like, yeah, I should do that, but then a lot of the times you cheat just a little bit and you put the fish in a little bit early. You can't do that with saltwater. Don't do it. Bad plan. Hard pass. Saltwater tank takes a lot longer to cycle than a freshwater tank. So in freshwater, a lot of the time we're kind of told to give it like a week or two, and you know, the really serious people will be responsible and test their water, but a lot of us just kind of give it a couple of days and then chuck the fish in. Yeah, you can't do that in saltwater. So those days are over. A lot of saltwater life is a lot more fragile, so you can't go adding corals if your tank's not cycled because they're gonna die. The thing about saltwater is that it's really, really expensive. Like, when I bought Live Rock for the first time, it physically hurt me when I saw the bill. Like, I was nauseous. And I went in there knowing what I was gonna pay. So you really don't wanna put all of these things that you've invested a lot of money into an uncycled tank, because when they bite it and they die, you're back at square one, except now you have to wait even longer for your tank to cycle because they've died and released a crap ton of crap and ammonia and horrible things into your water. So just, that's like a really big struggle that people seem to have a hard time wrapping their heads around, is that you just can't rush a saltwater tank. My tank cycled, oh god, I think it was like 7 weeks before I put anything in it. So I let it cycle, did its thing, cleanup crew in first, and that's kind of pretty standard for saltwater. Most people start by putting their inverts in, so I did 3 hermit crabs and some snails, and then just kind of put them in there to see how they would do. 2 weeks after that, I started adding fish. So if you add up all those weeks, that means my tank was literally sitting empty in my house with nothing but water and rock and sand for 8 weeks. That is a long time, and people have a hard time justifying that patience, especially when they're new to the hobby, because no matter how experienced you are in freshwater, like, we've all cheated a little bit, don't lie to me. Problem number 2 that I see other people making, and sometimes me. Micromanaging our tanks. So at the opposite end of that spectrum, where we have negligence here, now we have not negligence, hover parenting. What this looks like is, you know, testing your water too many times in a day or week and freaking out every time the numbers fluctuate the tiniest little bit, dosing your corals a bunch, because here's a little tip for you for saltwater. The more you put into your tank, the more you're responsible for putting into your tank. So if you get into the habit of dosing and doing water changes all the time, you're gonna have to keep doing those things, because your tank is gonna start depending on those nutrients and not generating them. I don't know where they come from, but like, if you don't make a big fuss over it, it'll figure its stuff out. It's when people start losing their minds and trying to like speed grow their corals to have the biggest, fanciest, shiniest one. And they start chasing numbers, like trying to, when you do your water tests, constantly doing water changes or adding things to get to a really specific decimal point, thinking that's gonna make or break your tank. Yes, to an extent, your tank should have basic water parameters that are safe and healthy, but all tanks are gonna fluctuate a little bit, and all tanks are gonna have their own kind of happy medium of where they like to be. So constantly chasing numbers, the more you put into it, the more you have to put into it in order to kind of maintain all of those things. Whereas if you really, really take your time with your tank, let it spend a good chunk of a year figuring out its own natural rhythms, figuring out its own cycle and where it's happy. If you give it the chance to really establish and become its own ecosystem, then that's a lot less that you're responsible for. And it'll just make it easier. That said, slight disclaimer, all I keep in my tank are like softies and a couple LPS. I had 1 SPS and it died, so, you know, I'm new to this too. It's okay, we're all here to learn. I also think another reason people find saltwater harder than freshwater is that there's a lot less margin for aerial. A lot less margin for aerial. Oh my God, that's me. No margins for me. I've been in my house too long, guys. I'm sitting in an empty apartment right now, just cracking myself up so hard. My neighbors can probably hear me. Saltwater tanks, there's a lot less margin for error. I just did it again. There's a lot less margin for error than there is with freshwater. So, especially with nano tanks, by the way. If you think about it, the ocean's massive. It's so big we don't actually know where the bottom of it is yet. So when you take that and you put it in a box, it changes things just a tad, and everything kind of becomes a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more fragile, and just because that's not really how ocean chemistry is supposed to work, and we're trying to replicate ocean chemistry in a very unnatural way. So I'll give you a little bit of a timeline for what I did for my tank to kind of get it up and running, and how stable it's been since then, and any issues that I've had. So I researched for, I mean, like, my life. I've always wanted to do a saltwater tank, like, really badly. But I think I did serious research for probably about 3 years before I added my tank, and even then I felt grossly underprepared going in, researching corals, researching water changes, and water testing, and all of those things before kind of getting involved. I spent a lot of time deciding which model I wanted for my tank, kind of just trying to figure out which would be the right setup for me and my needs. So I ended up going with a nano tank because I live in an apartment and I'm not actually supposed to have a fish tank. I mean, they know about it. So check with your landlord before you bring in a large body of water into your home. I couldn't have like a really big tank in here, obviously, because we live on the 10th floor, and if it burst, like, oh my God, can you imagine the legal ramifications of like flooding 10 floors of other people's homes? No. Got my tank in August. I set it up that week, I believe. let it cycle until mid-October. And this is a ballpark, like if you go back through my Instagram, I'm sure there's exact dates there somewhere. So if I'm a couple weeks off, don't come for me. I'm going off of the top of my head here. So mid-October was when I added fish, and I got my anemone right before Christmas. I got on the 23rd because we were having our Christmas party at my house that night, and I ditched it and we went and bought one. Anyway, it's fine. But yeah, so that pretty much wraps this one up, guys. I'm gonna go try and get some footage of my tank to include in here, so it's not just me chit-chatting all over the place, because I'm at 20 minutes and I don't actually know if I said anything that like lines up nice enough that I can put it in a video. Yeah, comment down below if you are looking to start a saltwater tank or are new to the hobby and have questions. I'll do my best to answer them as well and informatively as I can. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.